Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Mystery School Hour with your show host, Ortrun Franklin. On the Star Nations Radio Network.
Welcome, everyone. This is your show host, Ortrun Franklin, and it's wonderful to have you all gathered with me today, this evening, for this most beautiful summer day, the summer evening that we're going to be joining together. I want to thank everyone that called in via the internet, via the phone lines, or who's dialed in via the internet, and also thank you so much for those that come and listen to the replay. It's going to be an exciting show this evening. We're going to be speaking about dog days. What does dog days actually mean? Have you ever heard that phrase? Probably those that live in the United States have heard that particular phrase, but maybe across the world that is not such a familiar phrase for them. But it actually deals with the lazy days of summer. It deals with that time of summer when it is extremely hot. And I know in some parts of the world it would be humid, but in those areas such as ancient Egypt, it would be a time that it would be extremely dry and hot. But it specifically focuses in on the hottest days of the year. It also has to do with, in Egypt, with the inundation of the Nile. And the inundation of the Nile is one of the most important things that happens because this is what the agriculture depends on. This is what they depend upon as far as their livelihood and their foods. Now, besides this, why is Sirius thought to be such an important star? Ancient ones have seen Sirius as being the dog star, and it's been surrounded with lots of mysterious lore. And esoteric teachings of ages have attributed Sirius to special status, and there's a important occult meaning and symbolism that goes with Sirius. And we're going to talk about that this evening. Sirius is first and foremost located in the in the constellation of Canis Major, which is also known as the Big Dog, and it's settled right underneath Orion. So it's in that constellation. It's right below the constellation of Orion, but it is known as the Dog Star, and it is known as the brightest star in the night. You know, when we look up into the sky in the nighttime, we see these beautiful, what we consider stars, and we wonder, what are they? What are those stars that we see? And most of the time what we see, especially this time of year, is Venus and Jupiter. They're the brightest planets that are out at this time, but it is Sirius that is considered to be the brightest star. Now, Sirius is actually 10 times larger than Venus, but it is much further away from the Earth than what, of course, Venus or the other planets are. And the nursery rhyme of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star comes from Sirius. It is an ode to Sirius. And when you look up into the sky, and have you ever wondered, you look way up high in the sky, and you see the star that seems to be twinkling. It's giving off all these radiant colors, and it seems to be so far and so distant. That is Sirius. Sirius is known, as I mentioned, as the dog star, as the blue dog star, because one of the main colors that it projects and radiates upon the earth is the shade of blue. There is the beautiful color, of course, of the star, the beautiful rays that it projects, but there's this hue of blue that surrounds it, and so this is why it is considered to be the blue dog star. Now, artifacts of ancient civilizations have revealed much importance to Sirius. And the mystery schools, the ancient mystery schools, consider it to be the sun behind the sun. And so what they feel that Sirius is actually the spiritual aspect of our journey. We talk about the constellations of Canis Major, which is represented by Sirius. And then we talk about Orion's belt, which is represented by Osiris. And it is between the communion of these two, this god and goddess, that Horus was born, that the sun was born. And the sun actually is representative of that which gives us life. But it also represents humanity. And it is humanity that is fed by the sun, whether it be us as individuals or, of course, the plants and the animals. But behind the sun is Sirius. And so this is why it's considered to be the sun behind the sun. And with the sun being behind the sun, it is said that Sirius is actually the spiritual aspect. And we are in alignment where the waves of energy that are coming from the center of creation, that it comes down through Sirius, and then it comes into our sun, and then it radiates down into our planet, feeding us. And this being said, this is why it is considered to be the initiatory, a star. It is the star that is projecting that divine light that can help us to be uplifted and connected back to the union of the divine. It is also thought to be, I'm going to say, the Death Star. Anubis of the ancient times is associated with death. So Anubis was the god that the dog-headed god of death. The connection is there because Anubis is the one that oversees and protects, again linking it to this Canis Major, the dog constellation. The entire foundation of the Egyptian religious system is based on Sirius. They knew that every year the parent sun was in alignment with the dog star. So therefore the Great Pyramid was so constructed that the light of the dog star fell upon the square, the stone of God, which is at the upper end of the Great Gallery, the Grand Gallery. And it is here that shaft of light would come in and it would go into the Queen's chamber, and Syrian rituals would take place when the initiate was ready to be uplifted and brought to a different and higher level of awareness and of consciousness. There are many other indigenous groups that felt that Sirius was extremely important. It was not only the Egyptians, but it was the Dogon tribe and the Atlanteans. They also saw Sirius as being the most important star in all of our sky. And so, and not only them, I mean, it was the indigenous groups, the Indian groups, the Inuits, our indigenous groups, our Native American groups. They all feel that we have come from the stars. And this is the main star that's always being focused upon it. is Sirius. The Atlanteans, after the Great Deluge or the Great Flood, which took away all of their land mass, they found that there were some of the great masters that brought the teachings of Sirius, of the Syrians, to Egypt. And so the different temples of Egypt that are along the Nile, both on the east side and the west side, very much link to Sirius. Now, Saqqara was the first pyramid that was built in Egypt, and it is said that the Atlanteans felt that Egypt was very much a balanced country because it had both Upper and Lower Egypt. And in that time frame, many, probably 10,000 or more years ago, it was very much balanced. It was where both Upper and Lower Egypt had connected together and was working in harmony. And so the Atlanteans felt that it was the proper place to bring the teachings of Sirius. In Saqqara, which was, as I mentioned, the first a pyramid that was built, there were these columnar waves of energy that were inside the pyramids. And the initiates, they would go inside of the pyramid after being very much prepared. It took quite a while for them to be prepared, but they would eventually go into the pyramid, and these columnar waves would bring their awareness and consciousness up. And then it wasn't necessarily their body that they took, but at times they did. They were able to bring their body up through those waves of energy, and then they were able to go, and they were able to go visit the Sirius, the star Sirius. And it was also said that one of the jobs of that the individuals learned there, the ones that were initiates of Saqqara, they learned dance. They learned chanting, and combining this dance and this chant, what that would do is it would open the energy vibration, the energy portals, so that there could be that connection between Sirius and with Saqqara, so that these teachings, so that these masters could come and visit, and that they would be taught, teaching these initiates. So it's a two-way street. You know, we speak about traveling in our sleep state, visiting different temples, visiting different universities, visiting cities in the sky. Well, this is what was actually occurring, was that you could bring your vibratory frequency up to a point where you would be lifted up and taken up and be taught in Sirius or some other planet, or other sun. But most of the indigenous groups associate this all taking place with Sirius, that this was the connection. Sirius was the connections. It was that the Egyptians became the first divine rulers because they were given the different practices of the Atlanteans, the ones that they felt that were brought down from Sirius. There are many that are associated with Sirius. Thoth was certainly one that was associated with Sirius, as was Hermes. And they were equivalent to the Dogons. They were called Nomans. And it was believed that all of these beings of light, they were all actually originated from Sirius. And Hermes, we know, is a teacher of mystery, and he was always said to come from the stars. And as I mentioned, the indigenous, all of them looked up to the stars. All of them felt that to their relatives that they came from the stars. And to this day, this is really very predominant. This belief is extremely predominant yet, that we are connected to the stars, that we visit between the stars. There are books out such as The Return of the Star Gods, and others that relay that story of being connected to these stars, but specifically Sirius. It seems to be the most important of them all. Why am I speaking about Sirius? I'm speaking about it because Sirius is such an important star this time of year. As I mentioned, it's because of the inundation of the Nile. It's the one that comes out this time of year. But what occurs is that the sun is actually overshadowing it at this time of year. And the ancient Egyptians, they would not bury their dead while this occurrence took place. Even though Sirius is 10 times plus larger than the sun, because it's so far away, it doesn't appear that way to us, but it's blocking the light. And the ancient Egyptians felt that they could not bury their dead because they didn't feel that there was that passageway that was open. It was the bridge that connected us to the heavens, to the divine heavenly realm. And it is through Sirius that the saying comes, as above, so below, that connection of heaven and earth. That is, Sirius is that bridge of where it is located for us to be able to connect with that part of the heavens and be lifted into that higher realm of awareness and of consciousness. At this time, I'm going to take a moment just to see if anyone has any questions, then we'll continue on. So let me just check and see if there are any questions or any comments. If you have a question and you want to call in, please just push 1, and that call will come through to us. Okay. Hi, Neshi. It's good to see you. Okay, you are making a statement here, a comment. The Dogon tribal nation in Africa has amazing art about Sirius. Yes, it truly does. It's their art form shows so many symbolic some symbols that represent Sirius and what it is all about. One of the symbols that very much comes forth from not only the Dogon but also from the ancient Egyptians, and it then continues on into more current mythologies and thoughts, is like the Freemasons, is the pentagram. The pentagram was very much symbolic of that blazing star, and Sirius is known to be that blazing star. And what's very interesting about this symbol is that when this symbol was projected upward, it was thought to be the positive energies, the masculine energies. And when this pentagram faces downward, it's thought to be the negative energy, which is the feminine energy. And this feminine energy is really what is known as the Eastern Star. And because this rises in the east, and if we consider Egypt, they've always considered the east as being that morning star. It is that time of new creation. It's where the sun rises, where the creativity begins, and where we can implement and evolve. So sometimes it gets a little bit of a bad rap because they're saying it's negative, but it's not at all negative. It's very much a very positive star. The blazing star originally represented Sirius, or the dog star, and it's the forerunner of the inundation of Nile, as I mentioned. And Anubis is the god that is associated with that. You see, the Trinity comes out of that whole story also, as I mentioned, because of the Canis Major and Orion, and then the creation of these two gods of creating Horus, the sun, our sun. And there are many symbols that are representative of this. In the Egyptian hieroglyphs, Sirius has been interpreted to be different patterns. The obelisk is the one that represents Osiris, and the half moon facing downward is the one that represents Isis. It actually represents the womb, and then that five-pointed star is what represents Horus. So the Trinity has come back to us, in our religions today, but it goes all the way back to these ancient times. And there are so many different temples that are dedicated to Sirius, and probably one of the oldest is in southern Turkey, and it's Göbekli Tepe. And this goes back tens of thousands of years ago, and this is one that they've just recently found out. Again, they feel that this is very much representative of Sirius, dedicated to Sirius. Even our government buildings, it's so interesting because they too are aligned with this thought pattern. In Washington, the Washington Monument, it's an obelisk, which is representative of that male principle. And it's directly connected to the dome, which is very much shaped as what I mentioned, the shape of this half moon that looks downward, which represents the divine feminine. And together, it produces Horus, the unseen energy, that unseen energy of Sirius. So even this symbology occurs right in our own land. Sirius is an extremely important star to us. It is also a star of soul liberation. And it was very much used in the rituals to liberate our soul. And you talk about liberation, we talk about freedom, and this freedom. This is a month when there are so many countries have declared their Independence Day. Not only in America, the Canadian is July 1st, ours, of course, is July 4th, the French independence is July 14th. That's only to mention a few. And it all has to do with this energy vibration that Sirius shines upon us this time of year. And there are many enormous changes that have occurred during the time of Sirius. For instance, the Berlin Wall came down during this time because of the energy. It's thought that because of the energy vibrations being so strong that, and it was focused down upon our planet during this certain time, and it was that the Berlin Wall actually came down. And there are other magnificent and large, important times in history that have occurred during certain alignments of Sirius with our planet. Sirius is also noted even in our dollar bill. We see the pyramid on our dollar bill, and we see the third eye, which is actually the eye of Horus, which is brought about, of course, again, as I said, with Osiris and Isis, which is Osiris being Orion's belt, and Isis being that of Sirius. And so the third eye is above the pyramid. It's separated yet because we as humans are not yet totally connected with the divine. But behind it are the rays, and it's not the rays of the sun that are behind that third eye on the dollar bill. It's the rays of Sirius, the ones that represent our connection to the divine, our initiatory path to the divine. It's that line that allows us to, first of all, walk our path, our physical path, and then connect to that spiritual path. The Great Pyramid is certainly an example of that. And Isis is very much associated with Sirius. And it is during this time of year, the shaft that comes into the temple, the chamber, the Queen's chamber, that this is when Sirius, the star Sirius, aligns with it. And the Queen's chamber is representative of our heart center, because the heart is the seat of the soul. And so another name also for Sirius is the soul connection, that divine soul connection. And the initiate, when they would go, each one of the temples of Egypt had their own initiatory path, but the best example is in the Great Pyramid. And first they walked their physical path, and they went into the temple, and the Great Pyramid for their initiations in to the Great Pyramid, a descending passageway. And that descending passageway really represented more the physical, and then as you walked down that descending passageway that connected you, basically all had come to this earth plane to learn and to understand. And sometimes we've been pulled in to the depths where we had to meet the dark night of the soul. And that's what the pit of that descending passageway represents. And once we meet that dark night of the soul, in other words, that we've actually faced our greatest fears, our greatest physical fears, and I'm going to also say our emotional fears, is then when we start up that path and we then continue our path ever upward into the higher realms. It's very much connected with our own physical body, where the chakra system, the chakras that align with the earth, they're all divine. Everything is divine. And then the heart is where that connection is, that crossover, where we now connect with the higher realms. And so it is here that certain times of the year that Sirius shines its light. And the initiates go through their process of being uplifted. And this is something we'll do tonight in our meditation. We'll go in to visit the Queen's Chamber so that we can experience the energies of Sirius touching us. Now, Sirius isn't only associated with the Great Pyramid, but it's associated with all of the other temples, because it is its light as it moves around throughout the year that it actually radiates into different temples. And so the initiations take place, but because the great initiation, the highest initiation, basically takes place in the Great Pyramid, this is why it is such an important one to focus upon. It's the way that the light shines into the shaft, and then directly, what it would do is it would the high priest would actually stand in this light that was shining, and that high priest would be able to pick up the solar energies of Sirius. And then the high priest was well enough aware of what this initiate was able to handle as far as energy. And so then that transmission of energy that was given to the one that was being initiated would be that which they would be able to handle. And we go through initiation after initiation after initiation as we journey upward and spiral upward to connect with that divine presence, that prime creator called God. And so we experience initiation many, many times in our lifetime. And these priests and priestesses, because they were the ones that had been working with you, all the while they knew how much of this energy that you would be able to accept and to be uplifted to the next level. Because if you were given too much of this energy, this solar energy, it could actually burn you out, because it's so strong and so powerful. It'd be like this electric current that's going through your body. And if it wasn't of the a frequency that you would be able to handle, it could be detrimental. So this is why it was so important that the masters, your masters, the priests and priestesses would be present so that what occurred would be really of the highest good for the initiate. Okay, I'm going to wait again for a moment and see if there are any questions. No callers yet? Okay, and are there any thoughts? Anything that you might want to share as far as your thoughts regarding maybe your experience with Sirius? No, nothing yet? Okay, then we will continue. Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey, they were two main figures that were associated with Theosophy. And both of these individuals considered Sirius to be a source of esoteric power. Alice Bailey saw it as the dog star, and she saw it as the true Great White Lodge. In other words, it was the star of initiation, and believed that it was the home of the spiritual hierarchy. It's the great star of initiation, and it is the major controlling influence whereby the cosmic Christ works upon the Christ principles in the solar system, and in the planet, and in man, and into the lower forms of all of life expression. So the thought of Sirius is extremely valuable in so many different philosophies. And as I mentioned, the Freemasons, they very much believed in Sirius being their star, their eastern star. It is the star that allowed them to connect. You know, I don't really know the rituals of the Freemasons, but they too, like the Egyptians, like the Native Americans, and many others, I'm going to also say the Hindus and the Buddhists, they all had that connection with the star Sirius. You know, something that I found very interesting as I was looking through a few of these articles about Sirius was that Sirius is also at times called Set, was actually the one that was the brother of Osiris. And Set, he was represented Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt representing more the physical part of us. And Osiris represented Upper Egypt, the higher aspect of us symbolically. And the two of them had battle. It was which would be more powerful, which would be able to take over both the Lower and Upper Egypt. And of course, there was that whole story of Osiris, him being, quote, in a sense, dismantled, becoming fragmented. This is what occurs to us when we come here to planet Earth. You know, everything is fragmented. Even everything out in the sky and of the stars, it's all fragments, and it's all these fragments that come together. But when we come to this third dimensional world, we are here in a fragmented format, because it is to this fragmentation that we can reassemble. And what it is that we focus our attention upon, that's what we will be assembling. So if your intentions are here on this earth plane to focus in on that which is of the earth, that is what you will form and fragment together, build together and form into oneness. But if your focus is on being uplifted and brought into a higher level of awareness and bringing together both heaven and earth, that is what will occur for you then. And that's what all of these initiations are about in the temples of Egypt. And also I'm going to set up all of these, the indigenous groups and philosophies and mythologies, always to seek and connect. And as long as we are here upon the planet Earth, it is for us to connect and recognize that there is a divinity in both the upper and lower of the heavens and the earth. And once we have done our part here upon planet Earth, we will then again join in oneness with the divine Creator. And we may choose again to come back to this planet, again causing more of a fragmentation to take place. But our chances are that we have chosen to be here with the planet, some of us for 100 years, some for 1,000, some tens of thousands, some longer. But the main purpose is always to uplift the planet. And by focusing on that star, the star Sirius in the night is a tremendous reminder of the divine light that shines upon us. Because Sirius is the brightest star in the sky. As I mentioned, it may not look like it is because we see Venus and we think that's a star. We see Jupiter, we think that's a star. But these are planets. This is a star, and the distance is so far, and with the atmosphere that surrounds it, it can give a different illusion. It can give this effect that it isn't quite as large as Venus, but it's the one that's in the sky that is casting off that beautiful blue ray. And the goddess of Sirius is Sothis. And Sothis is said to put off that beautiful blue cast. And that comes all the way into our church histories, I'm going to say, because the Divine Mother, Sothis, is the goddess of Sirius. And when you see the statues of the Blessed Mother in the Catholic Church, they always are garbed in blue. Some of them are darker blue, and some of them are lighter blue. But this is where this comes from, the tradition. Whether you learned this as a child, and more than likely you didn't learn it as a child because the religions have been watered down, and there's that which is given to the outer, to the ones, to the people, to the norm, but then there have always been the ones that knew of the higher meanings and the connection. And it was due to this sense of desiring separation and desiring control that only certain parts of our religions were spoon-fed to us. And this also occurred in, I'm going to say, the different philosophies. There were aspects that were not to be shared because there was a sense of control. But the time is now, and now Sirius is truly telling us it's time for us to start recognizing the true meaning of who it is that we are, and to start allowing those energies, the energies of that divine star, divine creation, the sun behind the sun, to lift us up into a higher level of awareness and consciousness. Okay, I'm going to stop one more time and see if there are any thoughts, any comments, any questions. Carl, do you have anything you'd like to add to this? You don't have anything to add to it? Okay. I also want to mention, before we go into meditation, let me just see here. Nessie says, she has a comment. She says, so much great information to deepen our understanding. My two favorite points are the divine soul connection, Sirius. The heart is the seat of the soul. And yes, I truly feel beautiful. Oh, it's a beautiful feeling in my heart. And to recognize that the heart is the seat of the soul. It is that crossover point where we have come a certain way in our initiatory process, and it's taking us then to that point where we can make our decision. And the soul, I believe the soul is our Akasha. I believe that our soul is like our Akashic record, and it holds everything about us, everything that we have ever experienced, whether it be good or bad, we consider it good or bad. It's really not, because it's all of the good. But it holds everything about us. And it is our coming back. It is our coming back and rejoicing, being able to sit on this seat, this throne. And really, Isis, oftentimes she will have, this throne, this chair above her head, because we sit upon this throne of light. And then, especially in the Queen's Chamber, and the light of Sirius shines upon us. And what that does is opens the stairway, or I'm going to say the Grand Galleria in the Great Pyramid, so that we then can walk that stairway, that ascension passageway, and connect then with the divine mind, which is Osiris, which is represented by the King's Chamber. And it's by connecting that divine heart and that the soul and mind that we then are able to be uplifted and go on to that greater journey to connect with that which is of the higher essences. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Neshi. Neshi says, in our heart holds all our soul's memories and experiences. Yes, I truly, truly believe that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, Carl?
In the next hour, we're going to go much more deeply into what the soul is, what its function is, and we're going to share some thoughts and ideas as to how to become one with it and allow it to become one with you. So if you're interested, hold in there a little bit.
And before I go into meditation, I just want to bring this more into our everyday life and how Sirius even affects what's going on in the world. I mean, not ones even that are thinking about the higher realms. And it comes through different arenas, like the nursery rhymes, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And When You Wish Upon a Star, that was the theme song of Pinocchio. And it's an ode to Sirius. And in that story of Pinocchio, Geppetto prays to the brightest star in the sky. And what he wants to have is a real boy, a real true essence. And the blue fairy, which refers to Sirius or Sothis or even Isis, the blue fairy is the one that carries that blue glow and descends from the heavens to give life to Pinocchio, so that Pinocchio becomes that true boy, that real boy. And the blue fairy is the one that guides Pinocchio to that right path. And so Sirius, in this particular Disney production, represents source of light, a guide and a teacher. And Sirius is the great teacher. And it's also in Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, the character named Sirius Black. The reference would be to Sirius B, because Sirius is actually a binary star, and that would be the darker side of Sirius. And he was Harry Potter's godfather, but he's also his teacher, and he's also his guide. And then that, even in this particular show of Harry Potter, that wizard, he then turns into this big black dog, which is linked to that dog star, but it's the negative aspect of it, which is, again, there's nothing really truly negative. It's showing both sides. There's always the positive and there's always negative, so that you can learn and attain that neutrality. And another interesting show, The Truman Show, that was a very interesting one. And these people in Hollywood, they have to be tuned in to some degree, so that they are presenting these kind of things through these stories and these storylines. And a spotlight that used to imitate the light of a star in Truman's fake world. Anyways, it falls from the sky and nearly hits him on the head. And the label on that spotlight is named Sirius. So even Truman in the Truman Show encounters Sirius. And he gets a glimpse of the true knowledge when this occurs for him. And this is when he starts to go on his quest for truth. Sirius is the star of initiation. And it's interesting how Sirius can be found in so many different ways so that it can be, that you can become acquainted to it and recognize its importance in our initiatory journey. Okay? Okay. Carl has a comment.
In the last several decades, zodiacs have been found in all 5 continents, and they were found in buildings that were really substantially built. And the buildings themselves, they had a small hole in one wall, and there was a mark on the inside of the opposing wall. And when the light from the star Sirius came through that hole and hit that mark, they knew exactly what day it was. That is how they set their calendar. And it's interesting that setting the calendar was based on the star Sirius. It has always been, in so many ancient cultures, the most important star in the night sky.
Yes, and this is also how the calendar, the Egyptian calendar, was set, for that same reason. And actually, it was during this time that the beginning of the year started for the Egyptians. Okay, if there are no more thoughts or comments or questions, I'm going to take us into a meditation and let us visit the Queen's Chamber and connect with Sirius. So allow yourself now to become still and to be at peace. And as you take a few deep breaths, begin to find yourself being totally surrounded and again protected with your masters, your angels, your angelic realm, your spirit family being present. And since we are visiting Egypt, the divine priest and priestesses that worked with you there. And as you find yourself upon the Giza Plateau, you look up into the sky and you see there twinkling far, far, far and high in the sky, this most beautiful, beautiful star. Beautiful star of Sirius is accompanying you along with your masters towards the Great Pyramid. And so you, with the many that are assisting you, enter in. You enter into the Great Pyramid. And as you enter into the Great Pyramid, you see before you a descending passage. But your teachers, your priests, your priestesses, they allow you to look, but they continue to hold your hand and you pass by. For this part of your journey you have accomplished, and it is time for you to go deeper in to the Great Pyramid, or deeper within yourself to connect. So you find before you an ascending passageway, and you walk this passageway and see there a doorway that now lead you in to Queen's Chamber of Light. As you walk into the Queen's Chamber of Light, you begin to see its beauty. You sense the divinity and the energy that is present there. You experience the sound vibrations that are bouncing off of the walls and of the ceiling of this chamber. And you begin to see a glimpse of light. Masters, your priest and priestess, they lead you. They lead you to the center of this chamber. Although there seems to be nothing there, that the room is totally empty, on the higher realm there is an altar, the most beautiful altar. And before the altar, a throne. And you are led to this throne. And you're asked to be seated in it. The priests and priestesses, they take holy water and they cleanse you. You find yourself being cleansed of emotion. You find yourself being anointed with holy oils. You find the scent of sage beginning to burn. And as they continue to prepare you for your initiation, this initiatory journey, you sense more and more the light in this chamber becoming brighter. And the time now has come for you sitting on this throne, the seat of the soul, begins to pulsate in excitement and anticipation. And the Master stands before you. And as the Master and Mistress stand directly before you, you find this bright, bright light coming through the shaft that is aligned with the star, the initiatory star, the star of knowing, the star of the heavens, the brightest star in the heavens. The energy of Sirius, the star Sirius, begins to pulsate down the ley line, reaching from the center of the star. It pulses down, closer and closer to the earth, coming in through the shaft. It touches the divine ones that are working with you with the solar energy, the divine energies of creation, the Creator. And as it touches them, they, with their sword of initiation, come closer to you. And they point this sword of initiation to your heart. as this point of the sword touches your heart, it's though an explosion takes place within you. It's though you are being opened up. It's as though there is an electric charge going downward through your chakra system and reaching down into your feet and into the earth. And this charge is also going upward. And as it is going upward, you find yourself standing in front of a stairway, an ascended passageway, and you find your spirit family assisting you. You find yourself getting up from this throne, the seat of the soul, and walking the passageway to higher ascension. Before you begin, you find yourself breathing rhythmically, pacing your breath, for this passageway is steep, and together they walk with you up this ascending galleria of light. You walk upward, ever higher and higher and higher, going ever deeper in consciousness, connecting with the center of all that there is, recognizing that every particle that is in you is also made of the same particle as creation. You find yourself having come to the top of this ascension passageway. And there is an opening. And the opening is narrow. But due to your desire to connect with divine mind, you find yourself stooping and entering in to the chamber, the king's chamber of light, the divine mind of your being. And so it is that your heart and your mind have now connected. And the two being connected, so that you are floating upward ever higher and higher. And you find that this third eye, this capstone that is sitting upon the pyramid, but yet separate, it lowers itself, and it encapsulates you in the divine pyramid of light that you are. And as this occurs, the light seems to be shining in every direction, for you have connected together the energies of Sirius, energies of Osiris, and have created the divine God that you are. And so you find your pyramid, your vehicle of light, radiating the energies of the divine star in every direction. And it is uplifted. You find it being uplifted, for you have become aware. You have added more and more to your inner knowing, to your Akasha, to your soul experience, finding that you are united with all that there is. And the recognition of as above, so below becomes so predominant. And placed now upon you is the aft, the crown of Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt. For you have been united. And you walk now with your vehicle, your divine vehicle, through the bridge which is Sirius. You walk through it and connect with the prime creation, where there is no limitation, where there is total freedom. Your soul has been freed. You have been liberated. And you have become part of the whole. And sense how this feels. Sense how every part of you vibrates in harmony. And sense how every part of you vibrates in harmony with all. Total oneness, yet total freedom. Your light shines as bright as the brightest star in the sky, in the night sky. For you have come home. You have come home. And so it is. So it is. So it is. So I want to thank every one of you for being here with us this evening. It's been a pleasure, and I love every one of you, and I hope you feel that oneness that I feel, that we are totally at one with one another and with everything.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Mystery School Hour with your show host, Ortrun Franklin, on the Star Nations Radio Network. You are listening to Star Nations Radio